In 1987, Apple decided to release the Beatles albums on CD for the first time, creating with it a core collection of just 13 albums, including the original 12 UK albums, also adding the US Magical Mystery Tour album. Since then, the core album series has been set at this. In 2009, when the stereo box and mono box set got released, they kept with this format. They also added in 1988 the Past Masters Volume 1 and 2, which then got slimmed down to just Past Masters with the 2-disc set, which included the non-album singles and B-sides and any other non-album tracks. Since then, people have discussed these in rankings. Today, I'm going to talk just on the 13 core albums. In an upcoming video, we will do the compilation albums, which will include that Past Masters series. I'm Beatle Destino, and welcome to my channel. And here is my list. With such a fantastic catalog of material, it's hard to pick. You're looking at, wow, that's at number 12? That's a fantastic album. I think everybody's ubiquitous number 13 is always Yellow Submarine. It's not much of an album, really. It's really an EP when you break it down, with just the 4 new songs to this from the Beatles. B-side being the George Martin orchestrated music from the film. The A-side featuring 2 songs that had already been released, not even any different mix or anything to them. Yellow Submarine will always go at 13, and there's not much more said to that. The 4 songs that are new, Hey Bulldog is fantastic. I've always really liked It's All Too Much. The other 2 I could give or take. They're fun songs. Any Beatles song is a fun song. Hey Bulldog is fantastic though. But that's an easy album to place. Now the rest of these got a little tricky. I do my ranking a little different. I should have started with this, but we'll go here. I kind of look at it and go, I put one album next to the other and say, which would I rather listen to? And I go down the list until I've got it all completed, and whoever's got the most little hashtags next to it, after I go down the list, that's who the winner is. And this list could change from day to day. Well, maybe in a year we'll revisit this and see what's different. My number 12 did end up being with the Beatles. What a fantastic cover. Yeah, the music, it's great songs, but it really wasn't anything of an update from Please Please Me. Not saying these are bad songs. Like I said, none of these are bad albums. I love each and every single one of them. One thing that probably puts With the Beatles down a little low for me, when I started buying these as a teenager, it was in the mid-90s. I was buying the 87 CDs. Of course, being a teenager, you don't have a lot of spare money, so every couple of weeks, maybe once a month for sure, I'd have a spare, a little bit of money laying around, and I could afford a new album, maybe 2. And I just kind of slowly built it up from there. With the Beatles happened to be one of the last I picked up. And at that point, I think I talked earlier, I got into the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And at that point, I was buying a lot of theirs. And it was just one day I had a little bit extra money, saw With the Beatles sitting there thinking, oh, I still haven't got that. I guess just with that, it kind of put it way at the back of where I listened to everything else. Where these other albums, I'm, going to school, riding the bus or whatever, listening to these on CD as I'm riding. At work, a job I had when I was in high school, I could listen to music as I worked, listening to it there over and over again, and this didn't get that treatment. And still over the years, I haven't really went back to it as much, and that might be why. But anyways, number 12. So at number 11, we got the other album I was just really referencing, Please Please Me. How much better of an opener and a closer do you got than this album with I Saw Her Standing There, ending off with Twist and Shout? And how much better of an opener for your career than the 1, 2, 3, 4 of I Saw Her Standing There. But yeah, Please Please Me, I would put just a little above With the Beatles. I don't know, a little more energetic. I think that live, how they kind of recorded it live, not a lot of overdubs. I think that really shows out in there. You're gonna find out later, I really love the Live at the BBC albums. And I think this has got a lot of that feel. So at number 10, one that's kind of a controversial one, and I'll probably get some flack that I put this over the other ones, it's the Beatles For Sale. Another fantastic album cover. Of course, their first gatefold. I think a very underrated album. It is a little moody. It is a little dark. One thing that does bring it down is the cover songs, as everybody always says. They weren't as strong as on some of the other albums, I will admit that. But the other material tends to make it where I want to listen to that just a little bit more than the other ones. So at number nine, we've got not the Beatles, but A Hard Day's Night. Great film, great album. First all Lennon-McCartney material album. Yeah, it's just great, fun album, iconic songs, but there's just a few more ahead of it. And at number 8, the next film, Help. I've really always connected with this album. I remember, as I said, that job I had, I would listen to music as I was working, and I remember putting on Help a lot. It contains probably one of my absolute favorite Beatles songs, which is You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. Anytime I can rank the albums. I cannot pick a top 5 or anything favorite Beatles songs. That is absolutely impossible for me. Will never happen. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away is one of those that is at the top. But yeah, there's just something about this album. I think this is the true shift. Everybody says that Rubber Soul and Revolver are kind of the hand in hand. I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's actually a trio going For Sale, Help, and Rubber Soul. I think you're starting to see that kind of progression towards that folk rock. Obviously, For Sale was a little more country. This is kind of a blend of more pop rock and folk rock, kind of going away from the country a little, except for the Act Naturally cover. My one big blemish on Help, always hated it. Why It Happens. You've got the absolutely fantastic Yesterday, and that should have closed out the album. No question about it. And then you get Dizzy Miss Lizzy coming in. And I think on its own, Dizzy Miss Lizzy is probably a great cover of theirs. No doubt about it. If it was in another place, I've always kind of despised Dizzy Miss Lizzy just because of how jarring it is coming from the pure and simple beauty of Yesterday, and then you get this just coming in on Dizzy Miss Lizzy, and it just, it makes me quiver right now. Let's move on to number 7. And continuing with the films, we've got Magical Mystery Tour. When I looked at my list, when everything got done, I kind of laughed because I realized somehow all the film albums ended up in a row, or did they? We'll find out soon. But yeah, Magical Mystery Tour would be kind of my next on the list. I know a lot of people rank this a lot higher. I at one point was obsessed with it. I think with it being that Capitol album, it didn't have that same feel as the UK ones. Of course, it would chronologically follow Sgt. Pepper's in release time, but you're getting a lot of pre-Sgt. Pepper songs on it that were the singles. The Magical Mystery Tour EP, which would have followed it. My other big problem with this, I've never liked this cover, this album art. I love this bit that you got on the EP, but this other bit, this is too much. Why this couldn't have been just blown up, kept the EP cover art and just blown it up to LP size. How amazing would have that been? That would have been fantastic. But, what's all this? This doesn't even make sense. Great that you got a little hype with, what tracks are on it and that, but they went away from this with Please Please Me. And did he go for all the films in a row? Didn't purposely do it, but yeah, there's Let It Be. That ended up at number 6. This album, I remember when I first got it, and when I first started listening to this, the internet didn't exist, so I didn't have that outside, stuff in your head saying this and that about these albums, and I really connected with this album. I love The Two of Us. I've Got a Feeling. What a great rocker. This one, Paul doing it with John bringing in his little chunk, much like they did on A Day in the Life. On this album, I never liked Across the Universe or Long and Winding Road. Once I started hearing some alternate versions of that mixed down, like on the anthologies or Let It Be Naked, I really learned to appreciate those songs a lot better, but especially on Long and Winding Road. Paul hated it, and I agree. Even before I knew Paul hated it, I never liked that song done the Phil Spector way. The orchestration that just didn't do it, I don't think, any favors. Yeah, this album at one point, I think I probably would have put it number 1 when I first started listening to them. I guess now it's at number 6. And yeah, I think it's a good spot for it. Anyways, number 5 would be Sgt. Pepper's. When you listen to this album, it's just, especially with the engineering and knowing what went into it and hearing the studio as an instrument, it's amazing. The cover is amazing. Everything about this album is amazing. It just slips into number 5. There's just 4 other albums I'd rather listen to over it. I think you really got to get yourself in the right mindset and be ready to really soak this album in. And I think that's part of it with why it might not be my number 1. But then again, it really isn't a lot of people's number 1s. But I also don't like the people that hate on it. This is a fantastic album. Absolutely fantastic. And I think a lot of people might be surprised on this. But I'm going to throw this in here. You know, this is my opinion. And like I said, this is how I'm feeling at this moment. You ask me tomorrow, it might be totally different. You ask me in a week, it might be totally different again. And you ask me in a year, I might put Yellow Submarine at the beginning. I really doubt it, but you never know. So coming in at number 4, we're going to have the Beatles. And yes, I always try to refer to it as just the Beatles. It is the bloody White Album, though. I don't know. I love the White Album. Always have. Having to take the time to listen to 2 albums instead of 1, really. And of course, Revolution 9. Yeah. But not saying it's not good. When I'm in the mood for it, I'll sit and listen to it and dissect it. Opening with Back in the USSR. A song on here that I think gets very underrated is Long, Long, Long. Absolutely fantastic song. Every time I hear it, it's just so haunting and so brilliant. Why it doesn't get talked about more, so I'm going to talk about it, at least that little bit. I don't know, I've always loved the White Album, or the Beatles. We will move on to number 3. One of the first true albums I connected with. My parents' record collection happened to contain this one of the only main UK albums that they had. Yeah, that's going to be Abbey Road. What a great album. Opening with Come Together, and the 2 George songs on there or something, and Here Comes the Sun, and I do like Here Comes the Sun. The medley, how fantastic is the medley? I know that was one thing that as a kid, that B-side, when I flipped over and I heard that the first time, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And that somebody could do that. The other thing that always got me was I Want You, She's So Heavy. How it just cuts off at the end. There's no rhyme or reason for it. You're just jamming, and then all of a sudden, boom, just gone. Just dead silence. Works so well on an LP that you gotta get up and flip it at that point. The CD, it still turns out pretty cool because they just kind of, and the cassette, I suppose, that was one of the other things that not only did my parents have the LP, they also had the cassette. So I know I listened to that quite a bit. The cassette, I believe, had a different track listing, though. I want to say something in Here Comes the Sun were flip-flops somewhere, which when I first started listening to the LP and the CD, it was quite different to me because I think I'd listened to the cassette so much more. But anyways, there's my number 3. And again, what a fantastic cover. We'll move on to number 2. I think at this point you got it pretty much figured out which 2 are left, but which way will he go with this? I am going with Revolver as number 2, and yet another fantastic album art. What a great album. I remember this is another one I really connected with strong when I was a kid, when I first started listening to these. I remember at one point sitting in, my parents had a big full-size van. I'd sit back in that on trips, and I remember just sitting back there with my CD player, my headphones on, just zoning out as we're driving down the road. And I vividly remember one night just over and over again listening to Tomorrow Never Knows, just trying to take that all in. What a song. And I still to this day, I just love digging into Tomorrow Never Knows. The other songs on here too, one of their best. I mean, a true masterpiece right there. It's always at the top of which one I want to listen to at the given moment. But moving on, I think everybody knows it by now. The number one for a long while, Rubber Soul. I haven't got into the US albums as much. I started with these. The US albums just absolutely confused me. Mom and Dad had a couple of the albums in their record collection. I never really got into those as much. They only had a couple though. I think I gravitated more towards Abbey Road than I did towards, I think it was the early Beatles they had. I want to say they had something else. Right now off the top of my head I can't remember. Oh, Hey Jude. They had Hey Jude. So I never really had to hear the Rubber Soul, the difference on it. I'm still a little confused by it. To me, this is how Rubber Soul should sound. Kicking off with Drive My Car, moving into Norwegian Wood. Just that feeling you get as you go down listening to this. It's just such a I don't know, I like folk rock, I guess. I especially love Beatles folk rock. This album cover, easily their best album cover. Everything from the font on Rubber Soul to just the way that they look. There's my number one. Finish it there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I will be doing the compilation live album, the true canon core ones now, not any of the weird 70s and 80s compilations that came out, just what they have released on CD and still consider their main canon today. So that will be one coming up very soon. But anyways, I'll be signing off, and again, I'm Beatle Destino, and we'll see y'all later.